there's so much more left for me to learn. And I think that when we talk about learning how to be empathetic and exhibiting grace for individuals, it is oftentimes something that we have encountered in our own life journeys when someone has done that for us. And we got to see how kindness can be properly executed. And therefore, it gives us the opportunity to, again, be able to pay that forward to someone else to say, um, let me understand. Let me seek to understand. There's that old saying that goes, listen to understand, not necessarily to respond, right? And if we really just take that simple piece of advice and pivot it into empathy and grace and kindness, that could benefit a whole bunch of other people.
Hey everyone, this is Tim Hinton from the Marketing Roundtable Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I'm here talking with Dr. Zachary Shirley today. Zach, how are you doing?
Doing well, Tim. How are you?
I'm doing great. I met you as we were working on the work we're doing at LCL Mentors, and you are on the mentoring team. So thanks for talking to me today about this. I think you're a really impressive guy, and I want us to talk a little bit about empathy and kindness, how those work together, which comes first. That whole topic is interesting. Before we jump into that, can you briefly let everybody know who you are?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Zach Shirley. I use he, him pronouns. I spent 16 years working in higher education at various universities across the United States in student leadership development, programming, student activities, and fraternity and sorority life. I've recently pivoted out of higher education into the ed tech world, education technology world, doing diversity, equity, and inclusion work for an assessment company who specializes in K through 12 assessments for students. And so a big part of my work is ensuring that our assessments read equitably and create diverse voices for individual students to see themselves in as they're taking their assessments. And so I've really recently pivoted, like I said, into this world, and I'm loving the work that I get to do because I get to meet so many different folks from so many different backgrounds and hear about their stories and understand the power of their lived experiences.
I love that. And that's sort of one of the points I'd like to make is we need to get to know each other, to find out their stories, find out where they're coming from. Because a lot of times that can inform the way that you interact with them and the way you think about their group. Zach, a lot of times we watch groups perform and it's very easy to go like, oh man, they're not very good, or wow, what's that girl doing out there, whatever. And we don't know the story. We don't know what their situation is. We don't know where they've come from. We don't know exactly what they've been going through. So I think we need to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. Have a lot of grace, have a lot of empathy for their situation. So how would you frame that conversation?
I would frame that conversation around the concept of empathy and kindness, like what comes first. So think kind of like the chicken and the egg concept. And I know there's a lot of debate on what came first, the chicken or the egg. But I think that when we talk about people's situations and people's stories, Tim, you're exactly correct. Like we don't know what that person was dealing with before they got to this event or they got to this concert or they got to this practice. We don't know what's on this person's mind as they're within this practice or within this performance. And we don't know what they have to go home to afterwards. And so I think we so often get caught up in the moment and what's going on in the situation that we don't really take a look at the holistic individual and have empathy or grace for what that individual may be dealing with. And that therefore exhibits that kindness. So in my mindset, empathy and grace come first, followed by the kindness of trying to understand what that individual may be going through. The kindness of taking just 5 minutes out or 10 minutes out and really having a conversation with that individual to find out what their particular story is that day. They could have had a tumultuous situation occur at home before they got on the bus. They could be going home to an abusive environment. They could be sitting there hungry, wondering where their next meal is coming from, but they're trying to put on this brave face to perform, not only for the benefit of their own reputation, but for the strength of the team. And so really taking that opportunity and having that empathy as human beings to know that everyone may not have awakened to a perfect situation. Who awakens to a perfect situation, especially in a global pandemic? Also understanding the fact that that kindness, again, can go a lot of times it can go a long way for individuals. We have to create spaces for people to be able to share those experiences and be comfortable with doing so, because that could make the difference between whether or not we see this individual come back and continue performing with us or continue participating with us, or quitting because they feel like that they don't have an outlet to be able to share what they're going through.
Right, and that we talk about culture all the time. In fact, I would say, Zach, that probably the thing that people ask the most about for our podcasts and webinars is, how do you build that culture? You see a group with this amazing performance excellence level, or there's a giant number of students who are all clamoring to be in the program, and everybody's like, how did they build that culture? But I feel like this is sort of like step one. Like, you have to create an environment where people feel safe, where they can feel like they can be themselves, where we're being ourselves with them. And that creates that empathy and kindness from there.
Yeah, and I actually want to piggyback on something that you just said about the creation of spaces, right? Oftentimes when we talk about DEI work, we sometimes say that we can't necessarily guarantee a safe space. We can try to work to create a brave space for individuals to either come to their instructor or find peers within the program that they can come to and be brave enough to share these stories and these instances of what's occurring in their life. And then ultimately that can create some form of a safe space, because if they find that support exists within that program or exists within that culture of the organization, then they're able to share more when other things happen. I think oftentimes people think culture is microwaved at 350 seconds, 3 minutes and 50 seconds, and boom, ding, it's done like a bag of popcorn. But culture takes time to create. And then students leave, students graduate. And you have to recreate that culture all over again. And so it really is a constant work that people have to be intentional about. And so we talk about that a lot in the DEI space as well. I oftentimes tell people that folks look at diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging as a destination, and they don't think about the checkpoints along the way that they need to satisfy. And if you're looking at it as a destination, you may get frustrated along the way because you're like, oh, why isn't this happening yet? Or why aren't these people getting this? It's something that takes continual work, and it takes work to do the continual work. However, if you do that and create that culture and create those expectations and create those traditions within the organization, it can only be for the benefit of everyone, because after a while, it will just be the expectation of the new folks coming in that, hey, this is how we operate. This is how we treat people. We exhibit empathy, we exhibit grace, we exhibit kindness. And they can learn that from their senior level peers all the way up to the director or whomever is in charge.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that you talked about sort of the journey and not the destination, because I feel like that's one of the main lessons that we all have to learn when we're working with students and we're trying to build these performances or teach a piece of music or whatever it is that we're doing and with our group. If you don't enjoy the process of that journey of learning and growing over the season, what's the point? I mean, we may end up somewhere great, but if you didn't enjoy that whole time to get there. So I like the idea of reminding people, hey, we're not going to get there in one day, in 1 week, in 1 month.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I turned 40 this year. And I look back on my life, and I think about all of the checkpoints that I've had in life and the lessons that I've learned at those checkpoints. And I said to myself, wow, like, had it have not, it was crap when I went through it for those crappy moments. And then I had some really great moments. So I'm like, man, I wish I could relive that. But if I relived it, would I have done it the same way or got the same thing out of it? But I look at those moments that weren't so great. And I'm appreciative for the lessons that I have learned. And I understand that, you only get, one 41st birthday, one 42nd birthday. Like, life is not a dress rehearsal. Like, it's one show. And therefore, I've learned to appreciate the lessons along that journey and not necessarily look to the destination, because there's so much more left for me to learn. And I think that when we talk about learning how to be empathetic and exhibiting grace for individuals, it is oftentimes something that we have encountered in our own life journeys when someone has done that for us. And we got to see how kindness can be properly executed. And therefore, it gives us the opportunity to, again, be able to pay that forward to someone else to say, let me understand. Let me seek to understand. There's that old saying that goes, listen to understand, not necessarily to respond, right? Um, and if we really just take that simple piece of advice and pivot it into empathy and grace and kindness, that could benefit a whole bunch of other people.
Oh, that's fantastic. And when you're in the middle of those terrible situations, you're probably not going to realize at the moment, this is really going to help me later. Like this is going to build a lot of things that I need. I look back at a lot of the difficulties in my life and I realize it gave me so much resilience and grit that has really served me well. But that doesn't mean it was easy to go through those things. And as you said, as an LCL mentor that works with people, that's part of that process too. It's like, I've been there. I know how this is. Let me give you some advice. Let me tell you what I did. Let me tell you what didn't work for me. That idea of being through it. I want to have this conversation because I want people to have that context as they're going into this season. We're all still going through something. We've been through a rough time. We're still working our way out of that. And so we
Yep.
have to give everybody the benefit of the doubt, a lot of grace as we watch those performances happen this whole season.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that number one, it takes a lot of bravery for someone to get out there and perform or public speak or, get
Right.
on camera or sit on a podcast, right? Like you are
Yeah.
put out there for the world to see or the world to hear or folks to take in whether how you're performing or what you're saying. And so um, it would serve us well. And I'm going to make a statement, and it's not going to be probably 100% correct because I'm sure that there's that one outlier who might be different. But I would wager to say that none of us woke up and were ready to perform the first time we performed. Like jitters and nerves were there at varying levels. And so my mindset has always been thinking about, okay, let me observe if this is this person's first time public speaking or if this is this person's first time performing and remembering what it was like for me. I was super nervous the first time that I stood in front of an auditorium of 300 students and parents and I was the lone speaker. And so when that happens with other people, um, I try to, number one, point out the great things that they did. I'm not going to focus on the negative first. I want to point out the amazing, awesome things this person did and how their impact may have made a difference in someone else's life within that audience or within that performance. And then I would ask the question, all right, so let's have conversations about where we all can improve because I think that if we focus on the fact that, again, none of us are finished cookies, we're all still baking. One day that 3 minutes and 50 seconds is gonna go off and go ding, and the popcorn will be ready. But I think that providing folks that opportunity to say, all right, these are my areas for growth. Um, and as we talk about mentorship and we talk about LCL mentors, that's what mentorship is like being able to provide someone that feedback and that opportunity to know, hey, you did great. And there are also areas that even we all can do greater in. And that's the impact and the power of mentorship. And that's where that kindness, I think, is also able to be exhibited.
So you're talking about which came first, empathy or kindness. Can you have the empathy with you if you're not kind?
That is an excellent question, Tim. And I think that that's something that we can definitely unpack because I look at I look at kindness as an outward action, and I look at empathy as an internal action.
Okay.
Um, However, I also think that that again presents the great debate: what came first, the chicken or the egg? And I think it depends on what perspective people are looking from. Because you're right, can you really have empathy in you if you don't have that trait of kindness?
Right, or at
And
least
I
the
don't know if
ability
there's a
to
right or
put
wrong answer.
yourself in somebody else's shoes, right? I mean, that's really the bottom line here is, you know, uh, having that perspective, having been through it, and like you said, remembering what it was like to go through it. So I just want us to have that context. I don't think it really matters. To me, it strikes me as maybe being situational. Like in some
Right.
situations, I need to lead with that empathy, and other times I need my kindness to come through so that I can find that empathy. So maybe it doesn't really matter, but the fact that we're talking about it, I hope will remind some people just to sort of have this context. I just think right now, especially, I think it's true all the time, but right now especially, a lot of people are struggling. They're not necessarily at their best, and they're all trying to get to their best. So we need
Mhm.
to have that patience and some grace around what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I love the example that you gave of needing that kindness to lead to empathy, because there have been times when I did not have that empathy for a certain person or a certain situation. But I remember, Zach, you are a kind person and you can get to this empathy. Now, it may take you a couple of minutes, but you can get there. And so I think that that's an excellent conversation and way to look at it. And it is situational. It is. And I think so many times we're presented with so many different situations in the course of one day that we have to decide, all right, what am I going to lead with? But as long as we have that mindset of, like you said, folks are wanting to do their best, and I'm hoping folks are wanting to do their best, then I can also work to meet this individual where they are as well, and exhibit that kindness or that empathy, hopefully both.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I loved talking to you about this. I have a feeling that we're going to be talking about some other things also in the future. So everybody stay tuned for that. And if, by the way, if you're not watching the video version of this, you're missing out, because Zach, you have like an amazing beard that is just really, you really got it going on. So everybody make sure you check that out too. Zach, thank you for talking to me. Anything you want to say on this subject as we're closing?
Thanks, Tim. Number one, thank you for allowing me to have this space and the opportunity to do so. I would just implore people to continue doing the work. When I talk about the work within a DEI perspective, I talk about just bettering yourself around all aspects of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Creating spaces for folks to feel like they belong. You can have diversity on your teams or your bands. You can work to create equitable experiences, and you can even, make the strides to be inclusive. But if you have all three and folks still feel like they don't belong, there's still a missing piece. And so we have to create environments where people feel like they can be and bring their whole selves, and without fear of judgment, without fear of repercussion, and be able to feel like they belong in the space as well.
Well, I hope that inspires a lot of people to really think about that. Everybody have those conversations with your staff, with your team. Let's keep talking about it. Let's keep striving to have that empathy and grace and make sure everybody feels like they do belong. Zach, it was wonderful talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tim.